start off and say thank you and just say how wonderful it is that parents are so passionate about families that spend your time and spend your money in just investing in upskilling, and well done. You know, I know life is busy and it's really hard to fit something else in. I understand that, but well done, guys, for just doing that. So I'm hoping that tonight will be super practical. I'm not really going to be sort of delving into theory and things like that, but give you some really practical tools that you might be able to apply straight away. So what I thought I would do is I might just pop up a presentation that I've started today to give you an idea of where we're going and what it might look like tonight. There we go. So we're going to first off talk about how do we handle the pesky fights or arguments that might be happening, because that certainly doesn't help the harmony and peace that we want in the home. We'll delve into then about sibling rivalry, about how you can create a more positive and build towards the culture you want in your family, where you have got meaningful relationships between the kids and yourselves. What helps, what harms, and then we'll also pause. I'll give you a couple of breaks in here just for a bit of a Q&A. I'll stop after the pesky fights when I've shared a couple of tips, just to talk that through a little bit, just to make sure that, one, I'm explaining myself clearly, and two, you might want to just wrestle with the idea a little bit further than what I've actually explained. And then at the end again, in the second section, I'll leave it open for question and answers. So if you've got something mulling around a scenario, you feel confident and relaxed to talk about, we can pop it in the chat, or if there just remains a few of us tonight, we can even unmute ourselves and just simply talk. So that's what I'm planning to do tonight. Now, I have pre-recorded some of this teaching. I find that it's more helpful. So what I'll do is I'll play the very first section and then I'll pause and we'll have a little bit of a conversation around, let me just, sorry, actually, I'm going to, before I do that, just check no one else is in the waiting room there before I do this. Let me just pause the share. I might be locking someone out and not knowing it because I'm the only one doing both roles tonight. Before I do that, I know that Megan didn't get the notes. If you also didn't get the notes today, just let me know, because stop that. Make sure. Oh no, no one else is in the waiting room. Do let me know either in the chat or by email if you don't have the notes. There are some things in the notes that I won't be saying tonight. They're fairly comprehensive around the topic, hopefully around tonight, and you might find them really helpful as well. Plus, we all tend to forget. All right, let me start jumping in with the very first thing about handling pesky fights, and then I'll pause and we'll have a bit of a chat about that. I'll make sure I've got sound. Up we go. There we go. And if there's no sound, please let me know, but I think I should have, yes, I do have a sound option on. Okay.
First of all, let's deal with a common problem that every parent faces, the fights or arguments that tend to happen. Now, of course, there are some niggles and there's some arguments and tussling that is quite normal within a family. In fact, kids learn by some of those things about how to sort out conflict, how to deal with things, how to negotiate, and power and all those things. So a little bit of that is quite okay. And how it happens in your family might look different for every family. But after a while, when you know there's a problem, you need to step in and something has to happen, all right? What the temptation is for every parent is that we end up being more of a policeman or a police officer or judge and jury, having to decide what went wrong, who was in the fault, and things like that. When we find ourselves smack in the middle of an argument, trying to hear this one and this one, nobody usually wins. And nor do you as the parent. So I would say avoid the situation when you feel like you are being drawn into the argument and you rather start playing in the argument and contributing to it, which is easy because our own emotional buttons get pushed. Or secondly, avoid the situations where you are being drawn in to act like judge and jury or a police officer. But let's move on to how you can actually handle it for those moments when argument and fighting is becoming harmful and you know you have to step in. We've all been here, right? Every parent has them, probably school teacher and group leaders, where kids get into tuffles. And it happens. So no blame or shame that happens, but it does. But you know when it comes to a certain point when you know you have to intervene because things are going awry, whether the oldest kid is dominating the youngest one or the youngest kid is biting someone else, or whatever's going on, there are times when we do have to intervene. So I've got two options here to share with you that I think you'll find work very well. All right, the first option here is fight out of sight. Now remember, these options are only to deal with the fight and the behaviour at hand. So fight out of sight means often children are doing their fighting, they're arguing to actually get attention. They've learned that if they provoke or if they prod someone, they will get their siblings' attention or they'll get their parents' attention, which they are underlyingly seeking. But of course, it's a negative way which they are attention seeking. And it's all about being on stage, if you like, or getting that attention. So if your children are fighting, you can simply go up to them with a calm voice. So once you've got your emotions in control, say, you're welcome to continue arguing or fighting as long as you do it out of sight and where I can't hear you. And so you might suggest to them, you're welcome to do it in the backyard or you're welcome to do it on the front veranda, obviously where it's safe and where you could just keep your eye on things as well. And then see what happens. I know that I've done this several times for my children, and all of a sudden they realised, well, actually, no, we don't want to go outside because it's cold or it's raining or something else, and they've suddenly realised they can sort out their fight. So it works really well. So fight out of sight is option number one. And you know what? Just play around and try them. Have a few different ideas up your sleeve. Option number two I want to talk about briefly here is referee for a fee. Now, I know a smart dad who did this.
Oops.
He has two boys, and they were forever fighting, and he started implementing things. There's a little bit skeptical that it was actually going to work, but it did work, and he noticed the fighting between his two boys started to decrease. And he only really had to implement this one or two times. And then he noticed that as soon as he said to the boys, would you like me to referee? That suddenly the boys' brains were engaged and they would start thinking and they were actually able to settle their dispute. All right. So how do you do it? Refereeing for a fee means to the children is that as a parent, if you have to stop what you're doing because your peace is disturbed or you see there's an imminent danger or there's arguing or yelling or fighting or property damage or someone's getting hurt, then you say, well, it looks like I need to referee, and I'm happy to do that for a fee. And I accept your money and I accept your labour or your time. Those are the two currencies that I deal with. Which one would you like to pay me with? And then you can step right in and go, okay, I'll sort this out, no problem. And then give them your fee. Now, your fee should not be 20 cents, okay? Make sure that you give a reasonable fee where the children are feeling the consequences of this, because you as the adult have had to stop doing either your emails or your home management or your cooking or even the time where you're recharging your batteries. And so you can say to the children, well, you need to pay back for me all the time and energy that you've taken away from me. So their fee might be they do the sorting of the laundry. It might be that they are raking up the leaves. It might be that they're dusting for you. I know in my house, I got quite a bit of dusting done for a little while, as that was used quite often. I would make sure that I'd have a couple of chores left around that I could actually give the kids to earn some money. And of course, because I was an adult, my fee was not a low fee. And I think I used to charge quite a bit to my hourly employment rate and say, well, this is what I get paid to do for work, and I'll give you a discount at $50 an hour, So try one of those two options. See how you go, because both of those things will help shift it and deal with the behaviour, whether it's the attention-seeking one, they're doing it in front of you, or doing it for a sibling to get their attention, which is obviously not something we want to continue them doing, because that is a negative way to get people's affection and attention, and we want to teach them healthy ways of doing that. and then refereeing for a fee. Have fun with that and let me know how you go minimising your fights. Okay, before we move on from this topic about how to actually deal with the behaviour of fighting and arguing, and let me just say that this arguing can also happen when it's words or deeds, because fights with words are just as harmful and important to the harmony in your home. So when kids start slanging off at each other and doing put downs or things like that, it may not be swearing words, but it might be put downs and it might be things that are breaking the connection with your kids. It's an argument that is destructive in the home. Okay, so after you've done the behaviour, it's time for, as a parent, when you've got a moment and things have calmed down, start reflecting about what you're observing, because you know your kids best. You are, and you're the one who'll be able to read it more than anybody else. Are you seeing a repeat pattern? Like, has a child got into the pattern of negatively asking for attention and affection? And do you need to do something about that? Is it a repeat behaviour? Are they attention seeking? Are they just tired? Are they stressed and anxious? Have they gone through lots of change? What could it be showing that your child is actually communicating, but not in a way where it's got words? So I would encourage you, when you are seeing fights and seeing arguments, spend the time to think about it, because children don't often do it deliberately, although they could form patterns of this behaviour, but unconsciously they might be actually trying to say something that you as the parent are discerning, and you are the best one to actually deal with it.
Okay, we might just pause there as I promised. Hello, Jeffrey. Nice to see you popping in as well. Let me just say, is that clear? Are there blanks in your mind? For some people, this might be a whole new thought about how to deal with fighting. Is there a question or something that I can help with?
If the child refuses to accept one of the options, what's then the next step?
Yeah, that's a good question, Megan. I guess for me then, and we're probably going to talk about this loop around a little bit at the end, but if that child is then actually breaking the peace or the harmony that you are trying to build in your house, then I would say your child needs some time to regather themselves away from the family in a place, not as a punishment, but as a place to regather. And go, look, at the moment, it doesn't seem like you're listening to mummy, and there might be, it might have been the fight has got to a stage where, you know, their lids are flipped and emotions are stirred up. And I would say, okay, you need to take some time away now then. Yeah.
Yeah. So like somewhere on their bed or something like that is okay?
I think, look, I'd love to think that we can give kids as many choices as possible.
Okay.
So if that happens to be on their bed, that's fine. But probably away from the situation just helps them to regulate, calm down, and give them permission to re-enter later on.
Sure.
Yeah. That would be one way of going about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question, because it's probably going to happen. And I know someone already submitted a question as well, saying that they seem to be stuck in a pattern where the oldest child is niggling the second child. Pretty common, right? I know my firstborn son thinks that he's meant to rule the roost by birth order, but my daughter, who is the thirdborn, by nature thinks that she should rule the roost and be the leader. So those two are forever fighting for power struggles, if you like, and they got into a bit of a pattern. So patterns can happen like that, but if you sort of take away the stage or the focus on it, it tends to bring them down a little bit and quieten things down. So you'll find it really quite helpful. Yeah. Any other questions on that one? How are we going? Scenarios that you want to pop up? We're all good? All quiet there? No problem. Sounds good. All right. Well, let me show you, moving on to the next section now. We're going to be talking about what is actually some helpful things that create the culture in your home to build the harmony that you're looking for. And it really is possible. You might think that it's, you know, not possible. This is always going to be the case. But that isn't the case. You can actually see this harmony and peace in your home. It really is doable. So let me jump into the next section, and that will hopefully get you going. And you might have some questions after that one.
First of all, let's deal with a problem.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so in sibling rivalry, we're going to be talking about these key points, which are also hopefully matched. May not be the order, your notes. How do you actually model it? Setting the scene, celebrating the differences within your family, some of the common traps that we parents find ourselves in, like the competition trap or the comparison trap. The importance of words, that words really do matter. And particularly when we're talking about forming healthy bonds and heart-to-heart connections, that is very vital in this part. And the other one I want to get into is that everybody builds together. So if you are watching this, and I know that, Julie, you're going to go out and put some kids to bed, come back to that very last point about make sure you get to this part, everyone builds together, because it is a really critical thought to put forward to the kids when you're creating this culture. So firstly, it might seem obvious, but let's get back to basics about setting the scene by modeling ourselves and just kind of making sure that we are putting on display in our actions and words and tone of voice the type of harmony and peace you want in the home, about you dealing with relationships. So sometimes I would have noticed that as parents, we probably didn't put some things on display that we were doing, and we felt to keep it more private, if you like, or to keep it away from the kids, or just didn't put it on display because life was busy. But even when you're having arguments that aren't really overly burdensome or concerning and appropriate for kids, let the kids see you have an argument, and let your kids see how you resolve your conflicts and make up as well. Let them see when you're going to apologise to somebody. Put it on display, because it's so powerful when you as a parent are actually teaching them this as well, because it'll speak volumes to your kids. So just a time to reflect on that and making sure that you guys are putting the first foot forward in that area, which I'm sure you are. Now, let me jump into this one, celebrating the differences. Again, this is a recorded one, so I'm going to be quiet and just play. Oh, hang on. Have I got that shared screen up? Maybe not. I don't think I have I? Sorry about that. I'm going to pause that today. There we go.
Celebrating differences. Well, I encourage you to do this and building this as a habit into the family somehow. We often do this around the meal table. For us, the meal times were not just eating, but often times of exchange of conversations, reading stories, sharing news, and sometimes we would just gradually drip feed to our children some of the things we wanted to actually equip them with and teach them. So around the dinner table, we would often talk about and celebrate our differences and celebrate each other. We would do things like, in your notes I've said, a game called One Thing I Like About. And that would be the person at the table. So one thing we like about Peter is, and then people would all have to take turns in saying one thing they liked about that person. And then we would progressively go around the table. And even when extended family came to stay, we would include them in that process. And what that did is really help kids focus their mind positively towards thinking about what they celebrate and recognise in each other. And that was a very simple game, but a very powerful game that we used to do. And you can probably invent your own system on that one. The second thing I've got here on the notes is love languages. And I would really encourage you. There is a website and a quiz, if you're not familiar with this, of understanding how we are uniquely made and designed. And we take in love. We have preferred ways of receiving and giving love. And that is a really fun way, because it helps you understand the need of your child and your child of each other when they want to show love to one another. They know how best to do it. Or if someone else is expressing love, they might be expressing it in a different way. So again, my second child, Peter, I do actually have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And Peter's my middle child, and he is our tall, cuddly giant in the family. I gave him all my height, but Peter's love language is physical touch. So as he grew older, of course, that type of physical touch would change a lot. And so he still really likes his husband. Often it's back scratching or rubbing his back or giving a massage or something like that, or, touching his hair, are ways of giving physical touch. But even though Peter had physical touch as his primary love language, when I was expressing my love in a different way, because my love language would be quality time, and I would want to spend time with the children to show them I love them, I would put language to that and say, Peter, I'm doing this because I love you. Peter, I'm making your lunch today to show that I love you. So those kind of things are really helpful and give kids a little bit of language and an understanding of celebrating differences, not expecting everyone to speak your language and be the same as you. The next one on there is after giftings and personality. Now, if you can look at people's gifting, that's a wonderful thing to do if your children are old enough to do that. But some things become pretty obvious in your kids fairly quickly. You begin to see signs that, are they very coordinated and good at sports? Are they great at reading and a book lover? Or are they artistic and they're brilliant drawers? Well, you just begin to celebrate that we're all made differently, but we honour and we celebrate what is unique in that person. I've also given you another thing in there for personality testing, which is a fun version of doing that if you haven't come across it. It's a way where people can understand uniquely in our personalities, we are wired certain ways, beautiful ways that are to be celebrated and enjoyed, but also making aware of our strengths and weaknesses and how we work together. So that's another fun way of celebrating your differences. And the last one in there, of course, is bless, not curse. And so I would really encourage you as time goes on that you celebrate a culture in your family where put downs and speaking poorly about one another has got a very low tolerance bar, and that we are here to speak life over people and we bless people. We don't curse our family. We don't speak badly of each other. We celebrate it. So hopefully there's a few clues there. You can check into the links in the notes that will help you explore these, and maybe you'll find other ways that you can keep going on and celebrating the uniqueness and the beautiful differences in your family. Celebrate.
Okay, let me pause there for a minute. For some of you, that might be some new ideas. For some of you might be acquainted with it, or maybe you've even seen it as an adult and not thought about some of those things for children as well. So let me just give you a moment to respond to that. Or question. All good, all quiet there. Has anybody ever tried the love languages in your family already? Can you give me a thumbs up if someone's actually already done that? Yeah, Megan has. Yeah, Katie's nodding. Have you done it, Katie?
I've not done it for the kids, but we've done it as a couple.
Yeah.
And I have listened to Holly's podcast, and she talks about it a lot for kids, which made me, I guess, think about, the ways my kids receive love, but not, I've never actually sat down and done it. So I've got some ideas about what their love languages would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you go to the website, there used to be a quiz for children, I believe. So that would be interesting to do. And I think in the notes I may have given you a little picture, a little snapshot if you're not familiar with those things as well. Yeah, good. Okay. Has anyone else had a go at love languages yet? No. Sophie and Joy might be putting her kids to bed. It's gone 8:30. Great. Okay, well, let me move along and feel free to
Yeah, I just have a question. I didn't get it very clearly. That point number 1 about the love language, how you're supposed to. I didn't get it very clearly. I got the other ones, but the first ones I didn't get it very well.
Okay, Jeffrey, that was on love languages, that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. In the notes, I've given you the website for that. But in one way that we can help our children understand each other and understand that we're all different and celebrate that is understanding how children receive love and give love. And that's a really helpful thing for children to understand, because it does mean that it's celebrating how they are as a person, but two, it helps them to recognize when love is expressed. And when love is expressed in different ways, they're beginning to understand it. And their love tank, like their inner world of their well-being, means they keep absorbing and taking in and recognizing love when it comes in different forms to what is their preference. And that's why sometimes I make sure when I'm doing something for a child, and particularly my own children, I would say, I'm doing this, but this is actually an act of love. And even if it's if it was a birthday gift, I would say to them, I've bought you this in particular, so every time you look at it, you'll remember how much Mum and Dad love you. And so it's not the material thing, it's what it actually represents. And those things is just teaching our children we are different and we celebrate it. They don't have to be all the same. And then secondly, it does help them to receive and take in love better. Is that helpful, Jeffrey? Yeah. When you get a moment, pop onto the website. It'll probably give you some really good language to understand further than what we're going to be delving into tonight. Yeah. Thank you so much for your question. Yeah. Right. Jeffrey is probably our furthest away participant. Where? Kenya?
Yes, Kenya. Yeah. Nakuru, Kenya. Yeah.
So, welcome.
Thank
Jeffrey,
you.
again.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. All right, let's pop along and keep moving along. Keep ourselves to schedule, which would be great. Oops.
Celebrating differences. Well, I encourage celebrating.
That's in case you should see that in your notes hopefully as well. But Jeffrey, that might also be a bit of a clue when you're going on the website that you find the right website. But that's what the book could look like. And the other picture there is what I was referring to in the notes about different types of personalities and understanding our personality, described in a very child-friendly way as well. Oh, yes. Okay, Megan. Great. Let's talk about that. Great question. We'll hold that and we'll bring it to the end. All right. Thank you, Joy, for letting us know. I hope you catch up on the replay and certainly reach out if I can help you in any way. Now, the comparison trap.
Now, another common trap is the comparison trap. You know, it's quite natural and normal that we look at our kids and go, oh, they're like their dad, they're like their brother or something, and we start comparing them. But this is something that actually fuels rivalry, because children are not being celebrated uniquely as themselves, but always compared to someone else, compared in their grades at school, comparing in their looks, or they're compared at how tall they are. And some of those things might be fine, but when we keep comparing them to another child in particular, say, why can't you be like, or you are just like your dad, but meaning it in a negative way, or your mum, that actually it starts to belittle the child and it doesn't celebrate them authentically. So let me encourage you to think about things. Are you comparing your child in their talents, in their giftings, their personality, or their achievements? Whether that be sporting, academic, creative, or friendships, or are you leaving space for them to feel safe and to be authentically them without comparing? This might seem obvious to you, but words really do matter when you're building a culture of harmony or peace in your home. So you need to set a standard of fairly high about what words you are and are not going to be allowed in your home. And so words do really matter when kids feel that they're teasing someone. And if that teasing is then becoming actually destructive and it's actually turns into be negative, if there's sarcasm, from kids, that's really harmful because a lot of kids don't even understand sarcasm. It's not the humour that they can actually understand. Or if there is name calling or things like that, then it actually does matter because it pulls away and pulls down the very culture that you're aiming for. So when kids do mess up, well, you need to let them also understand that it's their mess that they've created by their words. And so we would teach kids that when you say harmful or hurtful words, it takes about 10 positive things for that to be repaired and recovered. So you could try this suggestion is that when kids are saying something negative about another member in the family, they need to stop and think about what are the things that they like about that person? What are the things they're thankful for and celebrate? And make sure they may not get to 10, but they might get to 5 or they might get to 3. But it actually does help them to shift their head, but also understand that there is value and weight in a child's words. Words really matter. And if they make a mess with their words, it's their responsibility to try and fix it up. Because what you want in the long term is you want kids to be able to have civil conversations with one another, not destructive conversations. And if they make a mess, they go and repair the connection as well. Last point, but a really, really important.
Let me stop it right there, because that was a couple of concepts there to put into your world about the power of the words, and potentially even when kids make a mess with their words, how do you help them own the problem and then actually do something about it? So any responses from you guys first before I jump in and say any more?
Roselyn, I love that idea, and I have used that idea before. But I would love your thoughts around, if you kind of suggest that and the response is, your child's just not willing to engage with it or say anything nice because obviously they're angry and they're not in like a loving kind of space. What do you kind of do with that?
Yeah, I think it's that situation, Katie, where there's always the behaviour you deal with and then the heartfelt conversation you have with them. And if they're not yet regulated and in a place to re-engage positively, you just need to wait for the window to open up rather than force it.
Yeah.
Because we're teaching something in a forced, artificial, or, would we say, which is not really what we're going for. So you wait for the window within the child and you see that opening moment and you go, sweetheart, yesterday when you said this to your sister, you know what? As mum, I was really hurt. I wonder how your sister felt. Have you thought about that? And did you know that, when I've been reading about this is what happens. So what do you think you could do to help build that person back up and, come close again? And so, some people might not do it verbally. They might draw a picture and they might write, or they might say, the better they say it, because we do want the kids to actually, what we're teaching in here is what you do in the home is they'll do for life. So we want them to have those skills to kind of go, oh, I messed up. I should say sorry or repair, whatever that looks like. But again, Katie, it's all about the timing, trying to pull those two things apart, the behaviour, and then when they've recovered, they're self-regulated, and then they can go into actually participating more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question. That's great. And that's when I think also that little game that we said about one thing I like is a little game, but it actually helps them because they're getting their brains engaged and you're not putting words in their mouth, but they're hearing positive things about their siblings quite regularly, because maybe we did it once a week, there was no structure or schedule for it, but it was something we would do quite often. So all these little things that you do are all helping build a harmonious way. And what you're doing is in many fronts, you're building up the standard and creating the picture that you want to create for your kids. Yeah. And so it's not one magic bullet. It's kind of, creating the whole picture here. Yeah. Good. Are we good to go? Now, there was one slide in there I think I've actually missed, but put it into your notes. And that was a very common trap of competition that I did want to talk about, given also Australian culture. We're a sporting culture here, Jeffrey, in Australia. We love our sports, whether it be cricket, football, anything else. And so competition does get woven into our culture quite a bit. And it's not to say that all competition is bad, but I think once we get to competition where we feel like we're using it to fuel and inspire our kids to go further or in a way strive for affection and attention, it can be when we're creating a problem. And so you just have to watch how much competition you actually do put and use into your family culture. And then, again, it's a little bit similar to the comparison trap. You try to incent them to do further. I was coaching a basketball team of 5-year-olds one year in my local community because I love basketball. And I was a bit shocked to find out how many parents were paying their children for the goals they get. Yeah, me too. And I'm like, what? This is the first season they pay. Now, that one is the competition is a bit more eye focused than team focused for one thing, and that's the difficulty. There's a great story if you're a cricketing fan about Hansi Cronje, who was also paid for his cricketing scores and how many, I think, boundaries he would hit, and his parents would financially remunerate him. Well, if you follow the cricketing career of Hansi Cronje, it led to him match fixing, and it was the break of his career after he captained his side. So it's interesting that what can happen in a child's life. So be careful about competition, and be careful because it doesn't always send the message that your children are unconditionally loved and accepted for who they are. But just a little thought about that. Some cultures have got that more than others. So just depending on where you go. Now, let's jump into the last little bit, and then we'll have another 10 minutes or so for question and answers as well. Let me pop this back up.
One is that it's not just mum and dad or grandma's or the leader's job, whatever role you're taking, to build the harmonious place or group or family that you want. It's actually everybody's job. The burden and the responsibility is not just on us parents. So what I mean by that is we're not giving them full authority, but what we're saying is that they matter and that they can build a happy, healthy home. And what they say and what they do is building this together. Ultimately, it is going to be their relationships with their sibling, their relationships with their mum and their dad or their grandparent or their group that they have to take responsibility for. And I worked out that teaching my kids that we are all responsible for that in the home, everybody. And now when I mess up, I need to take responsibility. If I flip my lid and I yell and scream, then I've got to go and do the repairing. No one else can repair it. And so do your children. So if your children are also the ones causing the damage, maybe knocking down the sandcastle a bit, for maybe they had a tantrum at a bad moment, they are the ones responsible to go and build it back up. That's what they need to do. You can't do it. They actually are the ones because it's their relationships. I think this is a great lesson to teach kids to own their own relationships, to invest into them, to build healthy relationships. And when there's a problem, actually go and work out what you're going to do about it. How are you going to repair it? Are you going to clean up a mess? Have you said some bad things and you need to do it? Did you lose your cool because you didn't realize you didn't hold a boundary and a boundary got crossed and you need to learn to do things differently? Or you learned that you're on a short fuse and you didn't take care of yourself? All these things are wonderful relationship things that kids will learn out safely in your home when they're...
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, golly.
Now, another
comment. Ah. All right. Sorry about that. That just went a little bit away. I touched the mouse, the top of the mouse there. But hopefully that thought came across for you as well. Rather than making it mum and dad's job or a leader's job, but everybody is a vital member and important. And so therefore we actually are trying to demonstrate to our children that everybody plays here and everybody shares and everybody reaps the reward of creating this community and harmony that they're looking for. So in the notes, I've also said then that means that when it's not going like that with your kids and they do smash the sandcastle, ruin the peace in the home, or say something and do something, you do need to take some action. And as I've said to Katie before earlier, sometimes when you are able to pull apart the behaviour and then go and have a heart-to-heart conversation with your children, it's more likely that you're going to get progress and actually get some action and a real action from the kids, not just someone barking out orders and making them do something or saying sorry or something like that, but you're getting them to actually process it and emotionally deal with it. So some things, for example, that we had when things go awry is that we would often say to kids, well, actually, it doesn't look like you're fun to be with at the moment. Do you think you need to actually just regather and then come back and re-enter the family when you're doing better? And my kids will tell me stories now when a term that we coined was actually hassle time in our house, which was quite handy because when we were out shopping, hassle time could come out as well. If the kids were provoking and prodding each other in the shops, and but the kids knew, and I said to them, oh, this looks like we're going to have to talk about some hassle time. You know, mum's trying to shop and you guys are just fighting in the store and arguing and not getting in the car, and all the things that kids get up to. And my kids began to realise that hassle time was coming when I realised, oh no, you're really disturbing the peace and you're not working together cooperatively like we do in our family. And then we would talk about that and have some consequences for that as well. So there's a couple of ideas. When you do see it go away, get in there, wait till things have calmed down, and then actually have the conversation with them as well. And what are they going to do? And now that my kids are older, I would say that I've watched my kids take a lot of ownership for their sibling relationships quite a bit, even though every now and then they're tempted to put mum or dad in the middle of it. We try very hard to pull away back and go, well, it's your relationship with your brother and your sister, and you're asking me how they're going. Why don't you go and have a conversation with them? Because it's your relationship with your brother and with your sister, or brother and brother, whatever it is. So it really pays off trying to create that model and picture about how special and valuable their family relationships really are, and they're worth investing into as well. So, right, we've got about 10 minutes left in the clock, and we have got a couple of questions. One that someone who's on the replay is going to watch, where she has two girls, and one is older, about 4 years apart, continually provoking the other one, and then it gets all violent. So pretty normal, I would say. It can happen anywhere. So I hope some of the thoughts there are already coming out. And that is that it's really helpful for the kids to do that if they're in a pattern, to do what we said at the very beginning, where they can fight somewhere else if it's safe. And if it's not safe, then you referee. That could be a very good way to start as well, and just de-escalating that. And if it's just a pattern, that you're just breaking a pattern, that's okay. But if there's something behind that, finding out what is going on, and particularly for the one who's the provoker who starts it, finding out and reflecting about if there is a need, is there a lack of attention? Are they stressed? Are they simply tired and need a break? I don't know when you find more fights in your home. Do you find more fights at the end of the day after school? Would that be a fair assumption from everyone? Not so sure. Not so sure, Brendan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think mornings are a trigger for us when everyone's trying to get ready and out the door.
Okay.
And I was going to ask you about that, Roselyn, in terms of, you know, there's these, and like we also use the technique that you use, but, you know, about suggesting that the kids have some time apart or, you know, by themselves or whatever. But what would you suggest where, you know, we actually have to get ready and leave right now, so we don't have there's no time really to cool down. We all need to walk into school together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be interesting to look at just the process or the routine of the morning then. If it's too stressful, and that's when people are getting a bit heightened and kids are getting a bit anxious, sometimes they're saying something but not using the words that we would use. So perhaps try to figure out, is that a sign of anxiety or stress? Or what is going on if it's repeatedly happened? Is there a little tweak in the preparation in the morning that could give a bit more breathing space that they're looking for? Is there anything you can do in there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say our mornings are stressful just because it's hard to get everybody ready on time. So, and, you know, it doesn't seem to matter how much time we have, because having more time just kind of leaves more time for stuff to go wrong. Like we've tried getting up earlier and stuff like that, but actually we've actually found it doesn't help. It's not a lack of time. It's just you know, getting through all the steps, you know, to get everybody out the door is challenging. So yeah, I would say it is hectic in the mornings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents I think would identify with that as well. The only other thing is to try, particularly with your older children, is begin to bring in a little bit of emotional regulation, so that if they can get, and this is a bit of an age and stage thing, to identify when they're starting to feel a bit stressed or wound up, and try and give them language to it. Oh, you seem to be getting whatever your language might be. How are you feeling? And just go, oh yeah, I am feeling annoyed, or I am feeling tired, or I am feeling angry or frustrated, because even putting language to that can help them to start to regulate, they say. So as soon as you can get kids to name their emotions, they begin to tame them, and it just might be able to begin to understand when they get a little bit older how they can start self-regulating in you as well, and thinking about, well, what do they need to do a little bit better or differently, where there might be less contact or something, you know. So that's one possibility, Katie, as well. It's a little bit hard when you go full flight mode, getting out the door. You know, I think there's many an argument has been in our house of getting out the door as well. So yeah, it is tricky. But that's a couple of thoughts. Maybe something in there might twig you to watch it and see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else there? Otherwise, I'll go into the chat and have a quick look at what was in the chat. I think I did grab yours, Megan, as well. Do you want me to talk about that one? Your question, Megan? Was it you that popped in?
Yeah, I did put one in there. You can have a look at it if you want. Yeah.
Let me have a quick look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's really tricky when we're talking about someone else because we can only really control ourselves. But sometimes I think we can all miss the cues of kids. And my husband has picked me up when I've missed a cue, and he'd go, you're misreading that, Roselyn. And I went, oh, I've missed something. You know, I did speak harsher than I thought. And so my only thought would be, it's tricky, especially with your spouse. But to say, oh, I wonder if that's how the kids took it. Would you think about asking them? And actually getting the first-hand feedback, possibly. And because as parents, we all miss cues sometimes in our busyness, or our tone's just gone up and we don't realise it. And the kids are perceiving things differently than what was coming out of our mouth or our heart, you know, in a getting ready to school moment or something. Yeah. So that would be my only thought, because it is quite tricky. I think there's also when you say, what is really good, you spoke about ways he expresses love, just making sure the kids are picking that up.
Yeah, I do try and point out those sorts of things.
Yeah, and again, it's giving kids language to emotions and how they're expressed always helps kids a little bit in this, I find. So if you can sort of find that, or he can find that's great, you know. Yeah.
You wouldn't, I don't know about whether addressing, because sometimes I see that they've been a bit upset by something said.
Yes.
Would you address it separately with them and say, you know, like, I don't think your dad meant to upset you by that, or would you say anything, or just?
What ages would we be talking about, Megan?
Well, my eldest is 11 and the youngest is about to turn 4.
Look, it gets a little bit tricky. Kids find it really hard to come to parents with this stuff. I've noticed when I've ever raised it with my kids, they feel that, you know, the authoritarian, you know, child relationship sort of thing is very strong. So if they don't feel like that they can, but it's not a bad thought to say, hey, do you think you would ever share with Dad how you felt?
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a question. And somewhere along the line, they've got to own that relationship. But it's better to go to the adult, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's simply, again, another way of looking at it is if they do have those emotions, helping them with those emotions just themselves. You know, if they're feeling a bit like confused, or if they were feeling a bit flat or down or hurt, oh, what do you think you're going to do with that? Where did you feel it? Sit with it and go, yeah, sometimes when adults talk to you, it is confusing, you know, and sometimes we do make a mistake, or we give mixed messages or something without trying to, you know, diminish the other adult. You don't want to do that. And go, yeah, that happens. I know it's confusing. And, you know, and I've done that as well, and help them just process it without having to take it much further. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel, you didn't get the notes either. Okay, I will send them out back to you. Thank you for letting me know. All right, we do have time for another question if anyone wants to jump in.
I did have a quick question. What do you do when it's one, like I've got 5 children and one always seems to be the main target of the others being upset with, and then he quite often responds quite aggressively, trying to get, I think it's an attention, you know, I'll show you kind of thing. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. And again, I think in the notes I talked a bit about trying to build one-to-one with your kids as much as possible. And I guess if that child is feeling it so much, how old is the child that you're talking about?
He's almost 6.
Yeah. It's somewhere along the line, again, when we start talking about those things, celebrating our differences, understanding their personality and their love language is really quite helpful, because it gives them clues about how they're made. And so one of my kids is an introvert, highly introverted. And so when we worked out, do you think you need some time alone just to recover and recharge? What do they need? You know, is another good thing to work out. And so giving them permission to do that is really good.
Yeah.
And go, what do you need? Do you think you just need to sit next to mum for a while because they know that they probably may not fight so much next to mum? Or do they just need to put headphones on and listen to some music for a while, or get into their book or whatever? But that takes a little bit of developing, but it is also another possibility. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
And again, then you talk to the other kids and going, oh, I'm sad that this happened today. We're going to have to talk about that, you know. Sophie, yes, I will email you the notes as well. No problem. Great. Okay, now if you could do me a favour, what was something that was helpful tonight? Just pop it into the chat to me so that I know that something was helpful to you and helped you. I really would like to hear that. Maybe I kept a time. And is anybody else missing the notes? Everyone else has got them. It's Sophie and Mel notes. Great. I'll do that tonight, girls, so that you've got them. Yeah, thanks, Megan. How to pass on the responsibility for messes back to the children. Thank you. That's good to hear. Thinking about making sure the kids hear positive things about each other. Thanks, Katie. Yep, super. Thank you for that. All right. Well, we are right on 9 o'clock. I hope you have found some clues and some helpful things, helping kids reframe things. Yep. Sophie, thank you. Everyone builds together. Thank you. That's really good to hear. Catching names of various strategies help them remember them. Yes, it does, doesn't it? We can get it all nice and simple so that with parents, I always find if I'm trying a new skill in my parenting, I write a post-it note somewhere where I don't forget it. And visual clues are also really helpful. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm so thrilled that you came, and hope you find more peace and harmony and in your home as well. Careful choice of words. Thank you, Jeffrey. I got that as well. Great. I have got 5 minutes. Feel free if you want to sign off and say, I'm out, I'm tapping out. But I've got 5 minutes if anybody wants to stay on and have a quick chat or a question.
I've just been listening, and we've got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. So, you know, I'm storing this away for in a couple of years' time.
Good on you, Brendan.
But yeah, the older one has recently just really come up with fair. That's not fair. This is, I guess I don't have a question in this, but I find myself switching between either using some complicated concepts to explain why it is fair, or if that's too hard, I say, well, life's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not even being consistent there, but you know, she's just throwing it as anyway. But whether or not you've got a comment, that's just that's where we're up to.
Yeah, it's a really helpful reflection. Thank you, Brendan, because I think as every parent we would hear that. And if you have multiple children, and Megan probably has the most, although I think Jeffrey's got a lot of children in his care, we can't make it fair, and don't try to make it fair. And so possibly another way is simply go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's so true. But you know what you said still stands. But what did I say? So yeah, you're right. That is true, and it is tough that it's not fair, and sometimes it hurts that it's not fair, and that's all very valid. It's a valid feeling and a valid thought, and it's true. but don't try to make it fair for your kids, because you can't. You'll never win, and it's not the real world either. So we're not setting them up very well. So. A good reflection, Brendan. Thank you for popping in with that. Yeah.
I just wanted to say with that, with my kids, I've said to them, especially the boys, they're about 6 years apart. I said, would it be fair if I gave the younger one the same maths homework as the older one? You know, that wouldn't be appropriate. Yeah. Or, you know, your brother is taller than you, so you can't reach the same height. So no, you can't have the same privileges with turning the car on, or whatever the case may be. He sort of sees it that way then. Yeah,
that's a great idea, Megan. I love that thought as well. Yeah. And again, we're different. It's not equal and it's not fair. Yeah. Good thought. All right. Sounds like it's a full stop in the night by that sound of that. Great. All right. Good night, everybody. I will, if you don't get the notes, it goes away. Please let me know. I'm really happy to send them more another way. But